Hey there painters, welcome back for another episode of Mortal Realms Monday painting video. This week taking a look at the Prosecutor from issue 35 of the Mortal Realms magazine. You can find the review for that up in the top right hand corner there. And I'd just like to start off by saying, if you do enjoy this video, remember to hit that like button and subscribe for updates on further videos. So without further ado, let's take a look. So first of all, you'll notice I've gone and made a little bit of a custom base there. This won't be included in the video on how I made this, but it's basically some green stuff to make the paving stones, and then just some sand glued around the edge of it, with obviously the model glued in place there. I've then gone ahead and primed the model with grey primer, and I'm now applying a coat of Incubi Darkness. As this is the Celestial Vindicators, the last one of these that I did was for the standard guys. I can't remember what they're called, but you know the ones, the gold guys. So obviously this one I'm showing you how I did it with for the Celestial Vindicators, my chosen colour scheme for my army. So I'll get on with this and we'll be back in just a bit. Alright, next up is to take a large makeup brush, or what would be a large dry brush is probably a standard makeup brush, and some Sotek green, and as you can see there, I'm just dry brushing it over the whole model, making sure to come sort of a downwards motion, slightly on the sides of the legs there, and all I'm really trying to do is just pick off those edges and get some of that highlight on the some of those more prominent raised surfaces there, like the bulgy part of the calves and the tops of the thighs, top of the arms, things like that. As for the undersides, I leave that with the Incubi Darkness to give the impression of some shadow. So again, a couple of runs over with this, building it up to get a nice highlight across the model. Okay, so next up I'm taking some Abaddon Black, and I'm just going to apply this to all of the areas that will obviously be black, but also those areas that are going to be gold. So for this particular piece, that's the flats of his feet. I didn't want them in the same blue as the tops. I wanted to, give him a slightly different colour on the soles of his boots. So just a straight black there. The his right knee, it's got that sort of raised bit around it with the lightning bolt. That will be gold, so obviously I'll do that in black, as well as the trims on his shoulder guards. And I decided for this guy I was going to do his hammers with gold heads as well, so gold hammers with red handles. You'll notice that I've left the wings off of this guy. This is to make it easier to paint him, so I'm going to paint him to completion and then move on to the wings afterwards, which obviously will be later on in the video. So I'll go ahead and get these black details painted in, and catch you guys in a flash. And with all the black now done, it's time to get that first layer of gold on, and for this I'm using Balthazar Gold, and again I'm just going to apply this over all of the black areas. Now the black undercoat is a personal preference. You could do it with grey or white. Obviously it's going to give you a slightly different finish with the golds, but I do prefer to have the darker undertone, as it just makes the gold stand out a little bit better than it does when going over a lighter colour. So as I mentioned before, all of the black areas that you can see on the model here are going to be done in Balthasar Gold, and as always I will be doing this with various golds to make a more realistic looking effect for the gold finish. Okay, so next up I'm taking some Administratum Grey, and I'm just edge highlighting all of the sort of the black areas, so the belt and the backs of his knees, and if he has a little bit sort of under the armpits and things like that. Obviously not much to say with this one. Nice fine detail brush. This is a size 0. Small amount of slightly thin paint on the tip of the bristles, and then just carefully sideline that across the leather, the belt, obviously the top and the bottom. Now I did intend for this guy to be a quick sort of 1 hour piece. It ended up taking me just over 3 hours. Obviously I ended up going into a little bit more detail with him. If you guys would like to see me, or would like to see how to get a guy done, or a Celestial Vindicator done within an hour time frame, obviously to a slightly lower standard, what would be classed as the battle ready standard, let me know down in the description, or down in the comments, sorry, of this video, and I'll be sure to get a quick video up on how to paint up an army quickly. So I'll get on with this and catch you guys in just a tick. Okay, so now that I've got all the base colours down, we are moving on to the edge highlighting. So going back to the Sotek Green with a size 0 brush, I'm just going round and picking off all the fine edges of the armour, both on the areas where the light will hit and also in those shadow areas. This is an edge highlight, not an extreme highlight. The extreme highlights we save for those brighter areas in the light areas, but it's good to get a reflective highlight on those darker panel edges in, you know, sort of the under areas, underarm, under the legs and things like that. So again, very carefully going around, just picking off all those hard edges. Okay, and with those edge highlights done, I'm now taking some Ahriman Blue and just going in to any of those areas where the light is going to hit a little bit more prominent. So, you know, anywhere on the tops of the arms, top of the helmet, some of the chest plate, and you know, parts of the feet, things like that. Just anywhere where that light is really going to catch and give off that little bit of a shine. And to finish off the highlighting for this guy, you can see here I'm taking about a 50-50 mix of the Ahriman Blue and some white Scar, and just a little bit of water to thin it down there, and then again using that for the final most extreme highlights, being very sparse with this. You know, you don't want to go too over the top with it, just pick off some of those top edges just to give that extra little bit of shine. Obviously if you want to go for a little bit of a quicker paint job, then at this point you could leave out. This is for what I would call probably towards the parade ready quality, rather than your battle standard, you know, your tabletop ready. So I'll get on with adding a few of these little highlights and catch you guys back in a tick. Okay, so that's the armour done. at least the turquoise part of it. And now for the golds. So to start with, I'm now taking some Retributor armor and applying this anywhere where the light is going to hit the most, leaving that Balthazar gold for the deeper recesses and the undersides of the hammer. Any vertical surfaces that will catch light, I'll pull the brush away as I reach towards the bottom of the surface, so that the paint fades slightly into the Balthazar gold. So you can see as I'm coming down here, obviously from left to right you're going to get brighter to darker. I ended up slightly more of a brush, and you can see that gradient just picks up nicely there. So obviously going around the piece, bearing in mind where the light source is coming from, and getting this gold on there. As I say, this is the majority of the gold will be this Retributor armor with those deep recesses, undersides and things like that, being the Balthazar gold, or slightly faded off Retributor to the Balthazar gold. Okay, so next up I want to get the white shoulder pads and his knee pad in, and for this I'm just applying a couple of thin coats of Oath 1 Grey. I like the Oath 1 Grey as it's a very white grey. It is very close to being a white rather than grey, which works great for when you want to do white looking armor pieces. You use grey as your main white, and then that allows you to use white for a highlight, and then a very thin down black or Nuln Oil or some sort of grey wash to shade in recesses. So obviously the white on this guy is the shoulder pads and his knee pad with the lightning bolt. I could have done that blue, but I decided that I wanted something just to stand out a little bit more, and so I chose to do the white with the gold bolt and trim on the knee pad. Okay, so with the Oath 1 Grey down, I'm now taking Mephiston Red and applying this to the leather, whatever you want to call it, strap things around his waist there. Obviously making sure to get both sides of this. Now the handles, if you wanted to do a bit of a quicker paint job with less paints, then you could use the Mephiston Red for the handles as well. I like to have a slight variant between the handles and other reds, for example the leather pieces here, and so I paint them with a slightly different red, which we will come to in just a bit. But for now I'll get a couple of coats of Mephiston Red onto these leather bits, and we'll be right back. Okay, so with the Mephiston Red nice and dry, I'm now applying some Evil Sun's Scarlet, just as an edge highlight and for some of those flat, flatter surfaces, raised areas and such, just on the leather cloth here. Apologies for being slightly out of frame here. Obviously I'm still getting used to getting in frame and trying to paint detail without actually messing up. It's a weird way to paint with your arms out in front of a camera rather than hunched up right in front of your face. Obviously if I paint how I normally paint, then this model would not be on camera at all. And occasionally I do forget and pull back out of shot, so apologies for that guys, but hopefully what you can see is good enough to show you what I am trying. So obviously there I've noticed I'm out of shot and put it back in. So again, concentrating on the edges and then some of those flatter surfaces, leaving that Mephiston red in the recesses. So again, I'll get on with this and we'll be back for the next highlight. And finally, for those very edge highlights, the extreme highlights on this, I'm just using some Wild Rider red. It has that slightly pinkish look to it, and I'm just keeping this right on those outer edges and those sort of peaked points. Obviously just for some extreme highlights. Okay, so moving back to the shoulder pads now, I'm just taking some white scar and using this to highlight the majority of the pads. Obviously bringing it down just shy of the where it meets the gold, leaving some of that Oath 1 grey in there, just to show a little bit of shadow down in there. And I have also panel lined around that gold trim onto the white with some thinned down black, as I mentioned earlier. Unfortunately I forgot to record it, and it's such a short piece, it would have been 10 seconds piece of, worth of video. So but it was just very carefully a size 0 brush, very thin down black paint, and just run it right around that the recess where that white joins up to the gold trim there. So I'll get on with this and we'll move on to the next stage of this guy. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I prefer to have my reds vary throughout a model, or various colours vary throughout the model, in this case being the reds. So the red for the leather, I wanted to be different from the red for the handles. So for this one I'm using some corn red, which obviously has a little bit more of a sort of purpley pink hue to it. So yeah, this will be for the handles of both hammers and also the handle for the dagger on his waist. So I'll get on with this, catch you guys in a flash. Okay, and to highlight the corn red, I've taken some Wazdaka red and very carefully trying to pick out the sort of the folds and cross hatches on the handles here. I'll do this both on the top and underside of the handles, so essentially around the handles, for the parts that I can get to. Obviously try not to blob down into the little dips that make up the texture of the handle. And with that done, I'll then take a little bit of white scar, some of that Wazdaka red, as you can see here, and in about a 50-50 mix, just mix up a little bit more of a pinkish colour just for the top of the handles here. So it's just an extreme highlight on the top of the handles and a little bit on the dagger handle. Okay, so for the long parchment pieces here, I'm just taking some Morghast bone, and I'm going to give this about 3 coats, just to get it nice and saturated on this. Obviously I've got some of the blue on there from the dry brushing stage, and obviously we need to cover that. And with this being a bit of a pale colour, it's not overly opaque Morghast bone, so it does take a few layers to cover completely. Obviously this is slightly thinned down so I don't clog up those details in the script that is on this. So yeah, I'll get on with this, like I say, 3 or 4 coats, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, so once I finish the banner piece that's coming down from him, I went ahead and applied some Seraphim Sapia, that's the one, Seraphim Sapia wash over it, obviously sinking into those recesses on the writing that's on there. What I'm now doing is taking some Auric Armor Gold and using this as an edge highlight for all of the gold areas. Obviously this is all of the top, the sort of the uppermost pieces where the light would hit the most. The Retributor armor would have been used for the darker areas, edge highlights. So I always tend to use the mid-tone as an edge highlight in dark areas, and then an edge highlight for the mid-tone areas with an extreme highlight on top of those highlights. That way you're tying your mid-tone through to your dark areas in the form of those reflective edge highlights. So like I say, Auric Armor Gold across all of the edges of the armour where the light would be hitting. Get on with that and I'll be back in a bit. And finally, for the gold highlights, I'm just taking some Stormhost Silver, and whilst holding the model out of shot there, just applying it to those upper edges where the light is going to hit the most. Again, this is a stage that you could leave out if you are looking to save time, use fewer paints, and just get it more to a tabletop ready standard. Then yeah, leave this step out. Otherwise it does add a very subtle edge highlight to those gold areas, especially if you are using matte varnish to protect the model instead of gloss. Obviously a gloss varnish is going to retain the shininess of the metallics, and matte varnish will dull them down slightly, but due to the way that I've painted the golds on here, you will still get those sort of depths throughout the gold as they've been painted with various shades and tones of gold. So once again, I'll get on with this and then we can finish off the banner piece for him. Okay, so moving back to the Morghast Bone, I'm just going over those brighter, flatter areas where the light would catch the most. So obviously leaving the underside for the most part anyway. Obviously as it curves round, the underside becomes the top side, and so that will get some highlight. But I am just very carefully going over the top of this, obviously trying to not to go into the letters. You'll notice that I pulled some of the Sapia wash out of the letters on that curve, on the top of the curve, as obviously the light is going to be pretty much directly into them. It's not going to cast a huge shadow down in them, and so you get, you know, a nice sort of faded or more into light effect with it. So obviously, as I said, Morghast Bone, picking off the edge highlights and some of those more flat areas, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so I'm now going to follow that Morghast Bone up with some Ushakti Bone, and again using this as a edge highlight for anywhere that the light is going to catch. The Morghast Bone would have been used in the darker areas as an edge highlight there. So just picking down those edges and the ridges, and I'll also go around some of the lettering, in particular where the light would hit it more, so where there's less wash in those middle letters. I'll use this as a highlight around those particular letters. And finally, using some Wraithbone, I will go in and pick off some of my most extreme edge highlights just on those areas where the light is going to catch the most, you know, on the tops of the banner here and around some of the lettering. Okay, so now that the main model is finished, I'm now moving on to his wings, and for this I've just attached it to a paper clip with some super glue to hold it the best that I can. And again, using the brush that I use for dry brushing, I'm just taking some white scar and working this all over the wings to get a couple of 2 or 3 even coats. You know, I want to get that gunk off the bottle for a start. Ugh. So yeah, just clear some of that off. I'd over squeezed and put the cap on earlier, and so obviously that gunked up. But yeah, so like I say, taking some white scar, makeup brush here, and get a nice solid white base down on the wings. Okay, so with the white laid down, I'm now taking some Ahriman blue, and without cleaning the brush off after using the white, I've just run it across some paper towel just to remove as much white as possible. Dipping into the Ahriman blue, working it into the bristles, and then wiping the excess off. I'm now stippling it on just on the upper area, coming down to about just over halfway down the wings. And what I'm trying to do is sort of build this up the top of the wings and feather it out slightly, hence the dry brushing, just to give it a faint, almost like an airbrush effect, but without the airbrush, to go from a slightly darker blue down to the whites on the tips. So obviously I do this on both sides of the wings, trying to make sure that I keep it about even on both sides as to how far down the wings I come and how saturated that blue is towards the top. Okay, so I'm now taking 1 part Incubi Darkness to 2 parts Ahriman Blue, and doing the exact same thing, working it into the bristles, removing the excess on the paper towel there, and just working the top third, doing the same thing, stippling it on and then lightly dry brushing, blending it down into the blue that I'd already laid down. Obviously I don't mind going over the areas that are going to be gold, as they will be painted over, which is why obviously we work with the blending on the wings before doing anything else with this. So obviously I removed a little bit more of the paper towel just out of shot, and now I'm just dry brushing just to blend it and feather it down into the lighter blue there. Okay, so everything from this point onwards is done pretty much the same way as I did the golds on the armour. So if you are getting bored of my voice and would like to see the finished piece, then obviously you can skip ahead to the end. If you do, then obviously if you have enjoyed the video, let me take this chance to just ask you to hit that like button, and if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscription button. However, if you are enjoying the video enough to carry on watching, then obviously as before I'm now going over all of the areas that will be gold with some Abaddon black to get a nice base coat ready for the Balthazar gold. Okay, so next up I'm just taking some Mephiston red to do the hair piece at the top here. I went for the Mephiston red to tie in the piece from the leather and bring that colour up through the model into the head, rather than going with the corn red that was on the handles. So again, personal choice. If you guys are painting towards this colour scheme, and you want to save on a few colours, then obviously you can go ahead and do the Mephiston red here, as I'm doing, and also on the handles. And with the Mephiston red done, all I'm doing now is I've pulled the brush backwards through the Evil Sun's Scarlet, so that it flattens the brush, and that way I can pull it across these this hair piece and just pick off the edges and some of those more flat areas, leaving the Mephiston red down in the recess. And you can see there I'm just working a little bit of white into the Wild Rider red, and with a little bit of water. This is from yesterday's work. This is the following day that I'm doing this piece, this section. And again, just highlighting some of those edges with that slightly more pinker Wild Rider red. Okay, so the last piece, or the last thing to do on this now, is all of the gold areas. So anything that you can see black here is obviously going to get a couple of layers of Balthazar gold. Again, always going with at least 2 layers to get a nice solid even coat over the top of any base coat. And as always, once the Balthazar gold is down, I will then take Retributor armor and use this for the sort of the lighter mid-tone areas, leaving that Balthazar gold in some of those under areas. Now I've got the model flat on the my desk here, as I've got the light source directly above. You can see where the light is reflecting, and that gives me an idea of where to put my gold mid-tone and where to leave slightly darker, or where to leave the Balthazar gold for that slightly darker effect. Again, it's using natural light to show me where those highlights should be. Just makes it much easier for me. Obviously you have to bear in mind that as you move the model around, that light is going to move slightly. But if you can keep it still for the most part, get a basic idea, and you know, it helps show you where you need to go really. So again, get this down, and we'll be back to apply some of that Auric Armour gold. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I'm now taking some of the Auric Armour gold and adding edge highlights to those areas where the light is going to hit the most, and also some sort of lines through that gold where the light is hitting sort of more on an extreme. It just gives on flatter areas that more extreme sort of highlight to the gold. And you'll see here that I've attached the wings to the model, and using some Stormhost silver, I'm just picking off the odd extreme highlight here, just where I want that light to be sort of the most reflective. Again, using my source light to give me an idea on where some of this should be, and being very careful not to overdo it. You don't want to go too much with this kind of highlight. Just pick off the odd accent here and there. And there we have it, guys, a Celestial Vindicators Prosecutor. So once again, thank you ever so much for joining me for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please hit that like button. It helps me with YouTube's algorithm to get noticed more, which obviously brings more viewers to the channel, and in turn helps the channel to grow. If you are new to the channel, thank you for joining me and welcome to the channel. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscription button and ding that little bell for notifications on when new videos are uploaded. That's Mortal Realms Monday every Monday, and 40k Fridays every Friday, and then I am hoping to get a few more videos worked in here and there. So once again, thank you everyone for joining me. Until next time, take it easy and keep painting those minis.